if we were engaging our TVAs correctly. If you remember, we could feel here, so in from our hip bones, we could feel that tension coming, and we were looking for a flattened core versus one that bulged out. So I want to move on from that, and this week we are going to talk about how much effort should you be using and when should you be engaging. Alright, so I am Katrina and I am a pregnancy and postpartum corrective exercise specialist, and I help ladies with diastasis recti move without pain, stop peeing their pants, and basically have more confidence in their bodies again so that they can get back to doing whatever they love. Alright, so have you ever been a little confused about when to engage your transverse abdominis or your TVAs? Have you ever wondered whether you should be engaging them all the time? Like, I have a lot of people in my Facebook group that say, I got told that you should engage your TVAs like all the time, like every time you walk. When you run, you should engage them. When you walk, you should engage them. You should engage them all the time. I'm like, really? So there is a lot of conflicting information about this out there. And conversely, I find a lot of ladies engage all the time because they're like, it's the only way I can get a flat tummy is if I'm engaging, or even worse, sucking in my belly button, right? But is that good for me or is it bad for me? And that is what we are going to look at today. We are going to check out how much effort we should put in to engaging our TVAs and when we should be putting that effort into it. All right, so let's get started with how much effort. I love Anthony Lowe's statement here, and what he says is tension to task, okay? So I want you to remember that. If nothing else out of this, I want you to think tension to task. Okay, so let's have a think about that. If you were doing a body weight squat, so we are squatting like this. Now, how different is that to lifting up that heavy 50-pound toddler that you have when you're still squatting, but now you're lifting up something much heavier? Do you expect that you should engage your core the same amount when you're just doing a body weight squat as you are when you're lifting that 50-pound toddler or carrying around all the suitcases because you're traveling to your families for Christmas, right? Yes or no? Same tension or same effort? Or more effort for one than the other? I think you probably got it, right? A body weight squat requires less tension or engagement of your core than lifting up a toddler or suitcases or moving the couch because you want to rearrange the decorations. So that's what we mean by tension to task. So that's one test. Second test, let's have a think about it. And this is where I find a lot of ladies get it wrong. Heel slides. So like in the free beginners program that you can get from my Facebook page, if you click that sign up button at the top, heel slides versus double leg lifts. Now, a double leg lift is a super advanced core exercise. I see people without diastasis all the time bulging in this because they're not loading their core correctly. So it's a really advanced exercise. But heel slides are in the beginners program. So would you engage your core the same amount for a heel slide as you would expect to with a double leg lift, right? And the answer is no. But so many people engage to do these little heel slides. And here's the problem when you over-engage. It brings in your external core and other muscles. So if we think about our TVAs, they wrap around and come into our back. So if you engage them so tightly, they start to squeeze your back. And when your back starts firing, your back shortens. Okay, and can you see what happens when my back shortens? Can you see how my pelvis tilts, my ribs flare, and you know what happens then? Our core opens, and instead of using the front of our core for these heel slides, we're actually using our back. So our tummy isn't doing anything at all. It's taking a break. But our back is doing all the work. And that means our back is getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And we end up in this type of posture where we have that anterior tilt, that forward flip, and we can't correct our diastasis because our back is taking over. Some people, their obliques and their rectus abdominis take over, but that's the same issue. We then start seeing that gripping under the ribs. We start seeing that lower belly bulge that nobody wants, and a lot of pressure coming down into our pelvic floor. So always remember, tension to tucks. Is this an easy movement where I just need to exhale? Or is it a hard movement where I need to really think about it and go and really work that pelvic floor up and get that tension in there? Now, here's a really, really quick and easy tip for you to make sure you're not over-engaging with some of the beginner program exercises. So let's take heel slides for a moment. We are lying down on our back. And when you're lying on the back, you don't need to have any back working or any of this external core because the ground's supporting you. So your back and your core doesn't need to hold you upright. So when you are lying on the ground, you can slide your hand under here and you should be able to grab into those muscles here and feel that they're really nice and squishy, okay? Now I want you to engage and they should stay squishy. And then do your heel slides and they should stay squishy. You don't need to turn them on. It's a little different when you're standing up, but the same idea. When you're standing up, if you're doing something simple, let's just say marching or something along that line, something a little easier, same thing. You'll have tension in your back muscles when you're standing because they're helping to hold you upright. But as long as you're not moving your back and you're doing something slow and controlled, they shouldn't need to fire much more, if at all, if you're using the front of your core, okay? So take that as a little tip. Make sure your back stays squishy, especially if you're on the ground, because if it tightens, you're putting that arch flaring and opening. All right, so that's number one, tension to tucks. There's no need to over-engage if the rest of the body doesn't need to work. Second one, should I engage all the time? And I bet you're kind of getting the answer to this already. But should you engage all the time? If you want to leave this live right now, the answer is no, you shouldn't. If you want to stay and find out why, let's get into it. So, let's think about this. Our pelvic floor is here. When we inhale, it should relax. When we exhale, it's going to retract. So it's like this. Our diaphragm drops and our core goes like this. On a biggish inhale, it'll go down a little bit further. It kind of goes down and widens and relaxes and it recalls. Okay? And we'll talk a bit more about this in the coming weeks. But what happens with the pelvic floor is when you, let's just say, do a Kegel. The first 30% is your pelvic floor muscles. The next 50% is your TVAs pulling on those pelvic floor muscles. And then the last part of it, so let's think about that, 30, 50, we're now at 80. So the last 20% is your external core, like the internal obliques, the external obliques, the rectus abdominis, all pulling up on it. Okay, so then everybody comes on board. But if you are always engaging your TVAs and pulling up, you know what that does to your pelvic floor? It means it is always high. Okay? It's not relaxing because you're not letting it relax with your TVAs relaxing. Now you're like, oh, why is this a bad problem? Have you ever peed when you sneezed? Have you ever peed when you jumped? Have you ever not quite made it to the bathroom because your bladder's a little full? If your pelvic floor is already tight, it can't go up any further and it needs to relax to contract. But if it's already contracted and suddenly you put a little extra pressure on it, it's not going to hold. I love to think of it as when I was a kid, we used to play this game where you held something in this bicep curl and they would let you hold it like that for like say 10 minutes, and then somebody would come on and like light as a feather, just tap your arm. And more often than not, it would go whoosh, like this, right? Because your muscle's strong in this position here. But as soon as you put a little bit more pressure on it, it's weak in every other position. So for a muscle to be strong, it has to be strong through the whole range of motion. And that goes the same for your pelvic floor and the same for your transverse abdominis or your TVAs. So they need to be able to relax and contract. And that happens with your breath, which we will get into in another week or so. All right? So we have this motion. So if you're always holding it like this, your diaphragm can't push anything down. And in fact, often it starts breathing up in our chest. And when we breathe in our chest, it looks like this. Right? And what's happening to my back? It's tightening. What's happening to my ribs? They're flaring. What's happening to my diastasis? Whoop, 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 right? And you don't want that, right? You want it to come in and reduce, in and reduce. So the breathing is so key, and if you hold everything tight for too long, you're weakening a muscle, because a tight muscle is a weak muscle. We need a muscle that's strong through the whole range. Okay, so no holding your TVAs tight the whole time, okay? Because that is just going to cause you longer term issues. Now, the thing is that people are like, but I only look flat when I engage my belly. And that's because you're not allowing your body to strengthen how it's meant to. Because you only look flat when you engage because you're only training your body to be engaged and flat. Whereas if you start letting it actually work as it's meant to, you'll start strengthening everything as it was previously, okay? So I want you to learn it's just as important to relax as it is to contract any muscle, especially the pelvic floor and the deep core muscles. Lastly, how do we know how much tension to put in? I like to think of it as, where is your pelvis? So let's just say we have a little bit of an anterior tilt like this, and I have videos on exactly this in my YouTube channel. So that's Core Fitness for Mums. So feel free to go and check out these videos as well. But again, it's kind of like tension to task. If you've got this anterior tilt like this and you're running or doing something like this, you're putting a lot of extra pressure down here. So what you do need to do is you need to have enough tension, and I say it's like pulling up from your pubic bone. So we just rotate slightly. We don't squeeze our glutes. We just pull up slightly, and that's the amount of tension that you should have. Just enough to bring your pelvis into a better alignment. It doesn't have to be a perfect alignment. It needs to be a slightly better alignment. And when you do this, can you inhale and still feel your pelvic floor slightly relax and contract with the exhale? So inhale, can I still relax it? Exhale, can I still contract it? If you can, then that is the correct amount of tension for everyday activities like walking and maybe having a jog or something along that line. But if you're going to lift that 50-pound toddler or move that couch, you need more protection for your back. So you're going to exhale and really pull up and engage so that you do that with the movement. Right? And then you're protecting your back, you're protecting your core, you're protecting that pelvic floor. No more peeing. All right. So, if you found this interesting, I do have in January a new 8-week challenge starting. And before that challenge starts, I have a blueprint that we will be going through together. It's 4 videos which take you through from how to assess your core all the way through to some of this information about your posture and your alignment. and you will be invited to join me if you're on the wait list for the 8-week challenge. So I'm going to post that link down below once I get off this live so that you guys can see it and join that wait list if you want to, and that will also get you invited into that blueprint for diastasis. So in summary, let's just quickly go over what we learned. How do we know? We think about tension to task. Okay, so that's one thing. Always keep that in mind. Tension to task. If we're doing the beginners program and we're lying on our back, we make sure that our back stays squishy. If we're standing, we don't want too much more tension. Just easily check is what's happening with the ribs when you're engaging or doing that work. We have a thinking about not engaging all the time, just having enough tension to keep that pelvis in a slightly better alignment than letting it all hang out. All right, so next week we're going to start on some breathing work, and we're going to talk about the difference between belly breathing and 360-degree breathing, and why some pelvic floor PTs get you to do belly breathing and not the 360-degree breathing, because that can be super confusing for people, especially if they don't stay with a PT like on a long ongoing process and just have a couple of sessions with them. So I'm going to go over that next week. So same time, same place. So in my Facebook page here, Core Fitness for Mums at 12 p.m. Eastern. All right, I'm going to check and see if there's been any questions, and if not, I am going to wish you a very happy rest of your day. Hey Robin, I'm glad that they were great tips. All right. Awesome. Thank you guys for joining, and I will see you next week.